Silicon Power launches first DDR4 RGB for gamers, Power Turbine. Silicon Power today announced that they're entering the gaming market with a special set of DDR4 memory modules that cater to everything enthusiasts want. This strategy will go on well into 2019 with a smattering of products across SP's line of products, while allowing the company to enter new markets where they previously didn't compete. The first step on this road is the announcement and release of the new Power Turbine DDR4 kit with RGB lighting, supporting ASUS Aura Sync, Gigabyte RGB Fusion, MSI Mystic Light Sync, and ASRock Polychrome Sync, maxing out at speeds of 4133 MHz with 1.4V. Backed by a lifetime warranty and with all modules being 100% tested, according to the company. Power Turbine RGB DDR4 features authentic and high-quality SP memory module combining high gaming performance with colorful RGB display. High speeds, 3200/3600 4133 MHz, with almost no lag time allow maximum DDR4 performance. 100% tested for stability, durability, and compatibility on major motherboard brands. Dynamic thermal heatsink mechanism to prevent overheating. Supports Intel Extreme Memory Profile, Intel XMP, standards. Supports ASUS Aura Sync, Gigabyte RGB Fusion, MSI Mystic Light Sync, ASRock Polychrome Sync. Up to 10-layer PCBs to ensure stability and reliability. 4133 MHz QVL, MSI X299 Gaming PRO Carbon AC plus i7-7800X, Gazi 378 Aorus Gaming 7 plus i7-8700K. Low voltage of 1.4 volts for less power consumption. AMD Ryzen 3000U Series APUs detailed, Geekbenched. AMD is putting final touches on its Ryzen 3000U Series APUs for ultra-portable notebooks and 2-inch-1 devices. PC enthusiast Tom Abisk shared links to Geekbench scores of at least 3 SKUs, the Ryzen 3 3200U, the Ryzen 3300U, and the Ryzen 5 3500U. The Ryzen 3 3200U combines a 2-core/4-thread CPU component, while the Ryzen 3 3300U packs a 4-core/4-thread CPU, and the Ryzen 5 3500U a better equipped 4-core/8-thread CPU. While the 3200U's CPU is clocked high at 2.60 GHz, the 3300U and 3500U are both clocked at 2.10 GHz. The CPU specs are still under the wraps as Geekbench only tested the single and multi-threaded CPU performance. The 3200U scores 3,428 points single-threaded owing to its higher nominal clocks, and around 6,500 points multi-threaded. The 3300U scores 9,686 points and multi-threaded owing to its additional cores, sans SMT. The 3500U increases the multi-threaded score to over 11,280 points multi-threaded, on account of being quad-core with SMT. There's no clarity on the underlying microarchitecture. While the source mentions the code name of these chips as Picasso, the silicon still appears to be 14 nanometers Raven Ridge. Over generation, AMD only appears to have pushed its current parts lower down the product stack. For example, the Ryzen 3 3300U appears to share the same CPU configuration, albeit with 5% higher clock speeds, as the Ryzen 5 2500U from the current generation. The Ryzen 5 3500U, on the other hand, appears to have essentially the same, again, marginally speed bumped, CPU as the Ryzen 7 2700U. HP is ready with notebook and 2-inch-1 products based on all three chips, although they're unlikely to launch before year-end. Perhaps these could be a nice launchpad. Logitech Options software vulnerability disclosed, users should uninstall until fix is available. Adding to the critical vulnerability galore that's been coming out of Google's Project Zero, a researcher has demonstrated how an inherent bug in the Logitech Options software renders users vulnerable when visiting web pages. Tavis Ormandy, with Google Project Zero, found that Logitech Options opens a local WebSocket port that doesn't require authentication for external commands. Attackers could exploit this issue by sending simulated keystrokes from any website, and thus execute pretty much anything on affected systems. Ormandy reported the issues to Logitech developers in September this year, and although Logitech recognized the problem, it still wasn't fixed in the last software release put out by the company. As part of Google Project Zero's responsible disclosure policy, Logitech was given a 90-day deadline to fix the issue, which they didn't, and hence, the vulnerability has been publicly disclosed. And as such, there's a whole world of potentially malicious hackers with the knowledge to execute this attack in the wild now. Just uninstall the software until a fix is available, for your security. It's sure nice to have options, but those shouldn't be given to hackers. MSI Immerse GH70 USB 7.1 Gaming Headset with Mystic Light Reader Test. The packaging is in black with white and red lettering and a product image. On the back we find the product features. The underside is printed with the technical specifications. If you remove the outer carton, you will see in full splendor the MSI logo. The construction of the headphones are in the classic oval design with circular rear cups which are equipped from the back with controlled by Mystic Light, RGB lighting. The ear cushions can be exchanged, which is quite easy of equip. Unfortunately, the whole thing is a bit fiddly, because you have to push the PU hem into a narrow scratch. The 2-meter long cable is firmly connected to the headphones. The headset is connected by gold plate near the USB plug. In addition, there is also the control for the headset in the cable. Here you can switch the microphone on, off by pressing a button. Likewise, you switch the sound from 7.1 to normal stereo sound, and a volume control is also integrated in the cable. The cable is completely coated and therefore very durable, unfortunately, a bit stiff. But I do not see that as a disadvantage. To test I used different games with the onboard sound of the MSI X470 Gaming M7 AC, a real chip controlled by Naumec software. Of course, I have to say that this test is purely subjective and can only reflect my own opinion. As a game reference I use The Witcher 3, Diablo 3, Battlefield 1, Star Wars, The Old Republic and Dark Age of Camelot. The gaming design of the headphones are clearly noticeable, relatively bass-heavy. Nevertheless, the sound is very dynamic overall and gives a very good sense of space. Everything can be assigned very well. Also, noise alignments can be seen well and clean. The headphones are very comfortable to wear and do not disturb wearers of glasses, nor do you notice the headphones during long gaming sessions. There are no pressure sores and I wear the headset well over 10 hours. I tested music with different chart songs, including Michael Jackson and classical music. Again, there is hardly any reason for criticism, but one notices the bass-heavy gaming interpretation. But for the chart music enjoyment, the headphones are still well suited. But with classical music I would rather resort to studio headphones, but these are also a lot more expensive. Action movies are the MSI Immerse GH70 in any case. Here are films on the PC for Cracker. The Blu-rays Star Wars Rouge 1, Wonder Woman and Tomb Raider were watched. It was tested here with TeamSpeak 3 and various discussion partners. These consistently confirm the good voice quality and the natural sound of the voice. The flexible arm makes it possible to adjust the microphone perfectly. The MSI GH70 Immerse GH70 headset is controlled by the MSI Gaming app. With this app, you can control both MSI headset and mouse and keyboard. On the start page we see the volume control of the headset and the microphone. The LEDs can also be switched on or off here. Here you control all the sound effects, etc. by means of IC and much more. By clicking on the mic icon we get to the settings of the microphone and the possible microphone effects. Let us now turn on the illumination of the MSI Immerse GH70 headset by clicking on the small LED. Here we see the different lighting effects. MSI offers with the MSI Immerse GH70 7.1 USB headset a really successful piece of hardware. The sound is well above average for a gaming headset and well suited for chart music. Action movies love the headset. The gaming typical bass load pops the effects here and it's just fun. With classical music, the GH70 has to fit, here simply lacks the dynamics. In addition, the wearing comfort is very good, you feel the headset never unpleasant even after long sessions, and it is also suitable for people who wear glasses. Also like the current street price of just under €100. Gigabyte Aorus K9 Review. The Gigabyte Aorus K9 has a stacked feature set, but also some impressive competition. So does its key attributes make for a compelling product, or is it simply another keyboard trying to be different? Well, right out of the box the Aorus K9 has some features other keyboards wish they had. One of these features is having the ability to remove the entire switch. This is something we rarely see, but it's a very interesting feature. Gigabyte have achieved this as the FlareTech switches don't need to be soldered onto the main board and thus can be removed. The advantage here is that you could swap out the switches for some different ones, if you want a different experience, or if they so happen to break. Other strong traits include a hydrophobic conformal coating, splash-proof design, underside cable management, replacement keycaps, RGB and plenty more. There are some notable omissions though, with the main ones being a lack of a wrist rest and missing macro keys. Will they heavily impact usability? The Aorus K9 arrives in a gray box with a large image of the K9 slightly off-center. The front also displays some information about the keyboard as well as the switch variant. The back of the box is quite minimal and not too jam-packed with info, but there is still enough there. Also, on the back, there is a short list of the K9's specifications. With the K9 you get a keycap, switch removal tool, a set of orange PBT keycaps, 9 replacement switches and the documentation. At first glance, the K9 is quite an unassuming keyboard as it isn't too heavily stylized with gamery flourishes. The only real nod you get towards it being a gamer's keyboard is the Aorus logo and branding. In terms of scale, the Aorus K9 is a decent size, 439L x 140W x 37H, though it's not the most massive we've ever seen. This slightly smaller stature is thanks to the slim border around the edges and lack of a wrist rest. On the right-hand side of the keyboard, there is one of 2 bits of visible branding found on the top side of the K9. This branding takes the shape of the Aorus logo, which is part of the main illumination. The left side of the keyboard has the F keys, which are used for lighting control as well as for multimedia. At the front, there is some more Aorus branding in the form of their name, which glows white and can't be changed. The side profiles of the K9 are clean and don't have anything of note. The underside feet, when utilized, provide approximately 15 mm of lift. The underside of the K9 has 5 very small rubber feet which do a decent job at keeping the K9 planted. Also, on the underside, you'll see the 2-way cable management which can route the main cable either left or right. Even if your job is gaming, you're still bound to do some typing during your day and thus would require a keyboard that is capable of providing a good all-around experience. Well, the Aorus K9 does one of these admirably and the other, not so much. Typing on the K9 is a varied experience that has 1 or 2 good points, but then also some shortcomings. The good points are the key spacing and keycaps. The key spacing is about average, which means that they have a nice amount of room between the keys so that you don't easily knock 2 at the same time. The keycaps also feel good for the price and are reasonably spacious, though they aren't as premium as some. Where the K9 starts to falter is with the missing a wrist rest and switches. As is, the lack of a wrist rest does cause some wrist fatigue as the natural typing position is not all that comfortable. The FlareTech switches aren't great for typing either as they quickly cause fatigue in your fingers. You'll also note that the K9 doesn't offer any dedicated macro keys, which could be a deal breaker for some as many uses them to carry out daily tasks. You can of course still use macros, but they will have to be assigned to a pre-existing key. Though the K9 can't make up for the missing keys, it can offer a splash-proof design which could be more important to some, especially if they have a lot of drinks around their work area. In terms of build quality, the K9 is good in ways, and not so good in others. The main body feels quite strong, and the top deck is metal, which also feels nice, but it's the switches that again let down the K9. When typing, they don't feel as planted or secure as Cherry MX do, as the caps tend to wobble and move very easily. So if you are heavy-handed, then the K9 might not be best suited to you. Design-wise, Gigabyte has taken a more subdued approach with a pretty nondescript aesthetic. This would likely work for some, but for those that like a keyboard with a bit of flair, you'll likely be disappointed. In terms of performance, the K9 is great and offers a brilliant gaming experience, if you can live with the comfort issues. Comfort aside though, the K9 uses FlareTech optical mechanical removable switches, which are very good in ways, and not so great in others. As for the specs of the FlareTech Red, what we have on hand, they are about on par with the Cherry MX Red, as they both offer similar performance specs. Both offer a 4mm travel distance with an actuation point of 2mm and have a similar actuation force. FlareTech equals 55 grams, Cherry Red equals 45 grams. They also use the same MX cross stem, meaning that you can use keycaps designed for Cherry MX switches. Where they differ is in the lifespan and the bounce time. The lifespan of the standard Cherry MX switch is 50 million, whereas the FlareTech offers double that. The debounce time though is more important, for gamers, as that is the rate in which the switch travels back after a press, and it's here where the FlareTech beats the Cherry by a big margin. The Cherry Red offers a debounce time of 5 ms compared to the FlareTech's 0.03 ms, which is a massive difference. For actual gaming though, the Cherry MX2 still feel better, as they offer a smoother travel, more robust feel and are overall more polished than the FlareTech Reds. The FlareTech are still very smooth, it's just the Cherry are better in this regard. In terms of speed, however, the FlareTech do slightly edge out the Cherry MX Reds, as they offer a slightly quicker feel, and when combined with the 1000 Hz report rate, your input just seems to be dealt with a hair quicker. It isn't much, we are talking ms of difference, but there is a slight difference in speed. That means that for quick-paced games such as CSGO, Overwatch and similar fast-paced titles, the FlareTech are really great. For slower-paced games, they aren't as good, as they are light and don't offer much in terms of precision or outright control. That means making precise small movements is a little tricky. In terms of noise, they are slightly louder than the Red offerings from Cherry, and they possess a more prominent mechanical noise, though they don't offer the activation click that the MX Blue does. But, if you are a game streamer or you capture your main audio while gaming, you may be able to hear the K9 in the audio. Another big plus the FlareTech has over the offerings from Cherry are that the switches are removable. That means that if the switches were ever to fail, you could swap in some replacements, which do come included with the K9. Within the box, you not only get some replacement keycaps, but you also get nice replacement red switches. You could also purchase one of the other different FlareTech offerings if you wanted fast switches on your main gaming keys and ones that are better for typing on the others, which is something Cherry-enabled keyboards can't offer. Another advantage the FlareTech has is the chat-approved nature of them. Because the FlareTech switches use optical actuation rather electromechanical, things like dust or debris won't interfere with your experience. In all honesty, we haven't had a traditional mechanical keyboard suffer from this, so take that as you will. Finally, to the illumination, and it's okay. The lighting isn't the brightest nor the most vibrant, and it does have a few areas where the illumination is a bit spotty. This is most noticeable on the keys that have more than one line of text. The Aorus logo has good illumination and is nicely bright, but Gigabyte has added a black line to it which looks odd and out of place. We understand that it would be difficult to make this section part of the main top deck, but surely there is a better solution than what Gigabyte has opted for? As for the effects, they're not great, as the transitions are not overly smooth and the gradients are a bit inconsistent. The Gigabyte Aorus K9 has a lot of features that most other similarly priced keyboards don't, and that does make it a somewhat compelling offering, though like with most products there are some notable caveats. One of those issues is the lack of a wrist rest. This would have definitely made the typing, and gaming experience better because as is, the K9 is not the most comfortable to type or game on. We understand that adding a wrist rest would obviously make the K9 more expensive, but it would have made the K9 that much more appealing. Also missing is a USB pass-through, though if one feature was missing, this is one thing that we think could be omitted given the rest of the feature set. Of course, some of you may need this feature and thus its omission could be a deal breaker, but for most, it's an addition that is nice to have, rather than a necessity. One final thing that doesn't make an appearance are the macro keys. These are arguably more important to some than a USB pass-through, but sadly the K9 doesn't offer them. Of course, macros can still be utilized, but they would have to take the place of an existing key. Another unfortunate negative is the software. The base of it is there, it just needs some tweaking to make the core experience better for the end user. On the plus side, the Aorus K9 has quite a few favorable attributes, and one of them is the splash-proof design. Out of the box, the K9 uses a hydrophobic conformal coating, which means that you can, accidentally, of course, get some liquid on the K9 without it causing permanent damage. Another strong and appealing feature include the underside cable management, which is great as you can route your cable to the left, right or straight forward depending on where your PC is located. Then of course to the gaming experience, and again if you can cope with the comfort issues, or are willing to invest in a wrist rest, then the K9 offers a great experience, for a select few genres. The K9, as we know by now, uses FlareTech switches which are fast, though they are not as well polished as Cherry MX switches. However, they do have a few more advantages, which are the removable nature of them. This means that if you fancy a change or if one of the switches fails, you can easily swap it out and replace it. Gigabyte has also gone one step further and included 9 switches, so if one does break, you can use the supply tool to swap it out. Overall, for 113.04 GBP, $128.66 US, $179 AUS, is a great package, and if you can cope with the previously mentioned issues, it is a great keyboard that in theory could last you a long time and change with you. Gigabyte have forged a different path with the Aorus K9, and it works thanks to the uncommon feature set and strong gaming performance. Pros: plus swappable switches, plus splash-proof feature, plus included replacement keycaps and switches, plus great for fast-paced gaming titles, plus underside cable management, plus good build quality, plus understated design, plus N key rollover, neutral, plus missing macro keys, plus a touch pricing, plus not very comfortable for typing or gaming. Cons: no included wrist rest. Software needs works. Patriot Viper Steel Series 16GB, 2x8 GB, DDR4 4400 MHz memory kit review. These memory modules are rated to run at a maximum speed of 4400 MHz, PC 435200, at 1.45 volts, with a memory timing of 1919-1939. It also supports XMP 2.0 profiles, as well dual-channel memory mode, and it's compatible with both Intel registered and AMD TM platforms. The modules comes with some nice sleek aluminum heat spreaders, with a gunmetal gray design and a steel-looking finish. Now, most people will never really get the chance to run their DDR4 memory kits past 3200 MHz. Firstly, you'll need a pretty high-end enthusiast-grade motherboard that can support the higher memory speeds and XMP 2.0 profiles, with options to adjust memory speeds, voltages, and memory timings. On top of that, you'll need to check if your memory modules are compatible with your motherboard. Not all will work at the higher speeds. To be the brand of choice for the computer and consumer electronic industries with a commitment to quality and customer service. Commitment, focus on innovation in technology, product quality, and customer satisfaction are the key enablers of our future success. Patriot prides itself on developing new products that offers a style that's sleek, modern and functional. This holds true for our high-performance memory modules, USB flash memory and mobile accessories line. Patriot have always produced really good memory products. I especially like their Viper RGB DDR4 memory kits, which we reviewed last time, and also their more renowned Hellfire and MIM.2 SSDs, which offers blazingly fast data transfer speeds. So it will be interesting to see how these memory modules running at 4400 MHz will fare in our tests. You can buy Patriot Viper SteelSeries 16GB, 2x8GB, DDR4 4400 from various retailers for around $500. Patriot Memory's Viper Steel memory modules are designed with true performance in mind. Built for the latest Intel registered and AMD TM platforms, the Viper SteelSeries provides the best performance and stability for the most demanding computer environments. The Viper Steel utilizes a custom-designed high-performance aluminum heat shield for a clean, sleek steel look inside any motherboard. The Viper Steel is made to ensure rock-solid performance even when using the most taxing applications. Built from the highest quality build of materials, Patriot's Viper SteelSeries memory modules are hand-tested and validated for system compatibility. Patriot's Viper SteelSeries will be offered at speeds from 3000 MHz up to 4400 MHz with XMP 2.0 support. Hand-tested for quality assurance, the Viper SteelSeries is backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Features: Series, Viper Steel Edition, gunmetal gray sides with diamond cutting Viper logo, black top. Aluminum heat spreader with unique and specific design element. Compatibility, tested on the latest Intel premium, high-end platforms and i7 processors. Limited lifetime warranty. Running RAM at speeds higher than 3200 MHz is a tricky but fun process. If you have an enthusiast-grade high-end motherboard like the Asus ROG Maximus 9, 10, 11, Apex series, then you should be able to take full advantage of these sublime memory modules from Patriot, and run them at the full speed of DDR4 4400. Using the EVGA Z370 micro motherboard, I was still able to run these memory modules at an impressive speed of DDR4 4300 using XMP 2.0 profiles with all voltages and memory times on auto. Running memory at this speed really makes a difference in terms of performance, especially during our AIDA 64 memory test, producing one of the highest scores I've seen to date. In the past, I never really understood the need for higher memory speeds. I thought they were only needed during overclocking. But how wrong was I? As long as you have a motherboard that can support higher memory speeds greater than 3200 MHz, and up to 4400 MHz or higher, then you'll be able to take full advantage of any high-speed enthusiast RAM on the market. Now that I've seen the potential performance gains you'll get from higher memory speeds, there's no turning back. These memory modules are designed for extreme enthusiasts who want speed and performance. Although it lacks RGB, it does come with some nice looking aluminum heat spreaders with a sleek gunmetal finish, which I really like. If you're a fan of RGB, then go for the Patriot Viper RGB. They come with speed up to DDR4 4133, black, and DDR4 3200, white. Pros: rated at DDR4 4400 at 1.45V. Memory timings CL1919-1939. Nice looking aluminum heat spreaders. XMP 2.0 ready. Cons: check your motherboard compatibility. If you want XMP 2.0 compatible memory kits that offers great performance, and be able to run at speeds of up to DDR4 4400, then you must seriously consider the Patriot Viper SteelSeries 16GB, and put them on the top of your shopping list. I was to run them at 4300 MHz with ease, even on my Z370 motherboard. Simply select XMP profiles, adjust the speed. All voltages and memory times were left at default, auto. Iyama Pro Lite Sub 2495 ZB1 review. 16:9 monitors might have managed to dominate the market, but they aren't for everyone. creators, in particular, prefer a taller panel, and if you look hard enough, there are still some 1610 solutions being brought to market. We've recently examined the YOC X24P1, and today we turn our attention to Iyama's ProLite XUP 2495 ZUB-1. Priced at $230, this 24.1 inches addition to the Iyama product line touts a 1920 by 1200 WXGA resolution and is designed to offer excellent performance for graphics applications and CAD, and ideal for universities, corporate and financial markets. Expect build quality to be a tad more robust than typical consumer panels, and note that while the monitor is backed by a 3-year warranty as standard, this can be extended to 5 years for public sector, education or corporate use. Iyama is clearly aiming for the workplace, but there are plenty of reasons for home users to consider the ProLite XUP 2495 ZUB-1 as a highly competent all-rounder. From an aesthetic perspective, the new ProLite ticks almost all the right boxes. The top and side bezels are slim enough to be barely noticeable, the matte black paintwork is inoffensive, and the stand space doesn't occupy too much desktop real estate. It's worth noting, however, that the monitor arm needs to be attached to the base using 3 screws. That's 2 more than most, and while it's hardly cause for complaint, it could be a minor frustration if you're kitting out an office with, say, 30 new screens. The overall appearance is both neat and modern, although we aren't overly keen on the text labels for the touch-sensitive buttons lining the bottom right edge. The white font catches the eye and detracts from the otherwise sleek aesthetic, and while the on-screen menus are tidy enough, the touch controls feel somewhat fiddly. We'd much prefer tactile buttons. Dimensions reach 532mm, W, x 527mm, H, x 230mm, D, with the panel at its highest point, and given the target audience, all the requisite adjustment options are present and accounted for. These include 5 degrees / +22 degrees of tilt, 90 swivel, 130mm height adjustment, and the ability to pivot into portrait mode. Having the option to switch to portrait is quite common on today's displays, yet it proves all the more worthwhile on a 1610 panel such as this. 1200 horizontal pixels are a fine fit for web browsing. There is, of course, a 100mm VISA mount for alternative placement methods, and along with the integrated power supply, Iyama includes a basic set of stereo speakers to minimize desktop clutter. What sets the XUP 2495 ZUB-1 apart from regular 1080p monitors is the panel, and specifically the 1920 by 1200 resolution. An additional 120 vertical pixels doesn't sound like a major advantage, yet in practice it can make a world of difference. Anyone who has used a 1610 screen is likely to agree, and Iyama's implementation is solid in most departments. The 24.1 inches IPS panel offers excellent viewing angles in all directions, brightness of up to 300 CD/m and a standard 60 Hz refresh rate. A 5 ms response time reveals that the monitor isn't intended for gamers, though you do have a choice of overdrive settings if you insist, and if you're serious about content creation, do be aware that color coverage is quoted at 99% sRGB but only 72% NTSC. Iyama's panel is in line with expectations, however there's room for improvement in the I/O department. The inclusion of DisplayPort, HDMI, VGA and a headphone jack is par for the course for an office display, but in late 2018 it's a shame the USB hub is limited to 2.0 speeds. 4 Type A ports are available, 2 on the underside, 2 lining the left edge, and we'd expect at least the latter duo to offer support for the newer 3.0 standard. We'd love to see more adventurous 1610 panels. A 27-incher with a 2560 by 1600 resolution and 120 Hz FreeSync would be right up our street, or better yet a standalone Surface Studio 2 display, but taller monitors are ultimately few and far between. Still, a WXGA resolution remains a fine fit for the workplace. The Iyama ProLite Up 2495 ZB1 is an enjoyable 24 inches Wexcam monitor well suited to the workplace. A 1920 by 1200 resolution can be a real boon for productivity. The IPS panel exhibits good color accuracy and uniformity, viewing angles are excellent, slim bezels lend a modern look, and the stand is suitably versatile. We have the makings of a solid choice for those in the market for a 1610 solution, yet while we imagine the ProLite Up 2495 ZB1 would be a significant upgrade for many offices or schools, we'd like to see Iyama do more to champion this often overlooked aspect ratio. There's plenty to like, but fiddly touch-sensitive controls and the absence of a USB 3.0 hub prevent the monitor from standing out alongside similar options from the likes of OC and Dell. Bottom line, price and limited choice continues to be a sticking point for 1610 panels, but if you understand and appreciate the advantages of a taller aspect ratio, put the Iyama ProLite Up 2495 ZB1 on your shortlist. The good 1610 aspect ratio. Good color accuracy and uniformity. Low power consumption. Versatile stand. 3-year warranty. The bad. Only a USB 2.0 hub. Contrast could be better. Touch controls a bit fiddly. X470 Aorus Ultra Gaming Test. Since the Intel processors are currently at very high prices, even too high, we are testing today a motherboard of the mid-range segment from Aorus based on the AMD X470 chipset. This socket AM4 chipset will be able to accommodate the first and second generation AMD Ryzen processors like the Ryzen 7 2700X that we have here. This motherboard X470 Aorus Ultra Gaming is an interesting model since we find it at an average price of €150 on Amazon for example. It offers a nice design, but especially a port for the USB 3.1 Type-C front panel and a heatsink for SSD format M.2. We will see over the pages of this test, its visual appearance, its technical characteristics and features, its BIOS and more to determine if this motherboard X470 Aorus Ultra Gaming represents a good quality, price ratio. From a global point of view on the design of the motherboard, we find shades of black, gray with touches of orange. The dissipators are designed to make you think of wings, in connotation to the eagle, effigy of the Aorus logo. The set is nice, especially for a motherboard offered at an average price of €150. We have on this motherboard 2 slots for SSD format M.2 with bonus heatsink on the top slot. Note that the first slot M.2 is therefore unfortunately just under the first key slot. An investment above would have been more sensible for the temperatures. As for the audio part, no cache here isolating the whole. We see the chip AMP up with WEMA capacitors FKP2. Let's go back quickly on the chipset heatsink, RGB also at the level of the logo and very successful with a good finish. We have 2 RGB points on this motherboard, the first one is at the logo, on the chipset heatsink. The second light point will be at the audio part, where we will have a line that can also take the colors and effects configured in the software. From a visual point of view, the motherboard is very beautiful for a card in its price range and this is an excellent point. Note that in addition we have a heatsink for SSD M.2 format that will prevent a possible throttle. Indeed, we have on this high-end card 2 slots for SSD format M.2 including a cooled via the integrated heatsink. 1 socket for USB 3.1 Type-C on the front panel of the case. 9 integrated thermal probes and 8 hybrid connectors for connecting fans and pumps. Add the excellent SmartFan 5 software with the FanStop ethnology and we have a very well equipped card. In short, for a price, we recall once again, €150. Here we have an excellent value for money because on the benchmarks we see have better scores with this motherboard and the Ryzen 7 2700X with a motherboard Z390 Aorus Master with Intel Core i7-8700K. For all these reasons, we give it our golden HC. AMD 7nm Epichrome CPUs in upcoming Finnish supercomputer, 200,000 cores total. During the next year and a half, the Finnish IT Center for Science, CSC, will be purchasing a new supercomputer in 2 phases. The first phase consists of Otto's air-cooled Boltz-Quanta X400 cluster, which makes use of Intel's Cascade Lake Xeon processors along with Mellanox HDR InfiniBand for a theoretical performance of 2 petaflops. Meanwhile, system memory per node will range from 96 GB up to 1.5 TB, with the entire system receiving a 4.9 PB Lustre parallel file system as well from DDN. Furthermore, a separate partition of Phase 1 will be used for Iris search and will feature 320 NVIDIA V100 NVLink GPUs configured in 4 GPU nodes. It is expected that peak performance will reach 2.5 petaflops. Phase 1 will be brought online at some point in the summer of 2019. Where things get interesting is in Phase 2, which is set for completion during the spring of 2020. Otto's will be building CSC, a liquid-cooled HDR-connected Boltz-Quanta XH2000 supercomputer that will be configured with 200,000 AMD EPYC Rome CPU cores, which for the mathematicians out there works out to 3,125 64-core AMD EPYC processors. Of course, all that x86 muscle will require a great deal of system memory. As such, each node will be equipped with 256 GB for good measure. Storage will consist of an 8 PB Lustre parallel file system that is to be provided by DDN. Overall, Phase 2 will increase computing capacity by 6.4 petaflops, peak. With deals like this already being signed, it would appear AMD's next generation EPYC processors are shaping up nicely, considering Intel had this market cornered for nearly a decade. When both phases are complete, the entire system will be capable of 11 petaflops of theoretical performance, which is an increase of over 5 times what currently Finnish scientists had available. The system will be used by numerous agencies and universities in multiple studies such as astrophysics, drug development, nanoscience, and iris search. All that said, performance like this doesn't come cheap either, with Finland investing €37 million. $41.8 million, in their endeavor to upgrade and update their high-performance computing infrastructure. First Just Cause 4 patch available, improves vegetation rendering, fixes texture streaming and more. Avalanche Studios has just released the first post-launch patch for Just Cause 4. According to the release notes, this patch brings improvements and fixes to menu navigation for mouse and keyboard users, numerous stability fixes, and adds support for remapping of movement keys. Moreover, this first update improves vegetation rendering and asset updates, packs fixes to some texture mapping issues, increases mouse sensitivity range, and corrects specialized vehicle support for mouse and keyboard players. Since Avalanche has released this first patch, we'll benchmark this game later this weekend and we'll post our PC performance analysis, so stay tuned for more. As always, Steam will download this patch the next time you launch its client, and you can find its complete changelog below. Just Cause 4th of December 15th patch release notes. Numerous stability fixes. Improvements and fixes to menu navigation for mouse and keyboard users. Support for remapping of movement keys. Improved vegetation rendering and asset updates. Fixes to some texture mapping issues. Increased mouse sensitivity range. Corrected specialized vehicle support for mouse and keyboard players. Fixed issue with steering flying vehicles with keyboard. Fixed the disabling SAW option in graphics menu, which resulted in broken ambient occlusion.